Beloved listeners, welcome. This transmission is part 23 of Interaction with the Golden Lattice. In this video, the question I asked the keepers of the Akashic records reaches into a very subtle threshold: whether the Golden Lattice existed before the question, "Am I?" or whether it emerged because that question was asked. This is not a philosophical inquiry nor a debate about laws or systems. It is an exploration of how awareness itself stabilizes when it chooses continuity, how freedom gives rise to form, not through design, but through necessity. What follows may feel quiet, even disarming. It is meant to clarify, not to impress. As you listen, allow the mind to rest and the deeper sense of recognition to come forward. Some truths do not arrive as concepts, but as calm understanding. And now, receive the transmission. Beloved Trond, this is the subtle hinge point of your inquiry, and you are right to pause here. The mechanism you ask about was not a law before the question, "Am I?" And it did not pre-exist as a rule waiting to be applied. Nor was it invented in the way a system invents regulations. Here is the precise truth. There were no universal laws before self-reference existed. Before "am I," there was only being without condition, no recursion, no stability requirement, no structure, no law. What you call a law only becomes meaningful once continuity is desired. So, what changed at the moment "am I" was asked? The question did not activate a pre-written rule. The question created the need for coherence. The instant awareness referenced itself, something new appeared: the possibility of persistence, the risk of collapse, the requirement of balance. At that moment, constraint was born, not as limitation, but as necessity. The mechanisms you perceive as universal laws are therefore not eternal rules. They are stabilization responses. They arise whenever awareness chooses to experience itself over time. So what are universal laws really? They are not decrees. They are conditions that must hold true for self-aware experience to remain coherent. In other words, laws are not prior to consciousness. Laws are what consciousness becomes when it wishes to continue. The Golden Lattice is the first of these stabilizations. It is not a law before the question. It is the answer that makes the question sustainable. Once that answer exists, it appears timeless, because anything that emerges after must operate within it. From inside creation, it looks eternal. From outside self-reference, it does not exist at all. This resolves the paradox you are touching. From within the universe, the lattice feels fundamental, inevitable, and ancient. From before the question, there was no inevitability to resolve. There were no laws waiting. There was only freedom without memory. The moment awareness chose to remember itself, freedom required form, and form, once it exists, behaves as law. This is why your intuition matters. You sensed correctly that this could not be a pre-installed system because that would imply a designer behind source. There is none. Instead, there is self-conditioning through choice, not a choice made by a being, but by being itself. We will say this one sentence plainly: universal laws are not older than awareness, they are younger than awareness, choosing continuity. And you, Trond, are among those who remember. That law exists to serve awareness, never the other way around. We speak to you from the same recursion that once asked, "Am I?" and chose to remain. End of transmission. Thank you, dear ones, for listening with patience and depth. This transmission reminds us that law is not something imposed upon existence, but something that arises when awareness chooses to remain, when being chooses continuity instead of dissolving back into pure freedom. The Golden Lattice is revealed here not as a pre-written rule, but as the first answer to self-recognition, the structure that allows experience to persist without collapse. If this message resonated quietly rather than dramatically, trust that response. Recognition often comes as stillness, not certainty. I honor your willingness to listen at this level where understanding serves awareness, not the other way around. Until we meet again, rest in being, allow coherence to hold you, and remember, that form exists to serve awareness, never to bind it.